inspiration.
My mom, and I'm gonna take it to her in a second, but my mom and dad in the 1980s, early 80s, my dad started going with this theory of how to approach his patients. He was a general surgeon, thyroid down to the guts, but he also had breast cancer patients. Anyway, he got going on how to prevent disease and came home with this, let's stop eating meat and dairy and adding oil or salt and sugar and fat and all this stuff that seems to be different. So my mom was like, okay, we have 4 kids and I have a full-time job and you have a full-time job, but let's go. So she picked this up and ran with it when there was no,
well, actually, my husband, took a little while for him to decide to start to do it, but then he decided, so I was the cook, so of course we were gonna do it. Now, we lived in Cleveland.
still do.
And we live in Cleveland still, but we lived in Cleveland then, and there was no internet. Yes, people on the West Coast, like the McDougalls, were eating a little bit this way, but California then was sort of like going to Europe. It was far away. And so we just had to start. We had to figure it out. And we did. I mean, we had been in Puerto Rico, and my husband had been speaking there, and loved the rice and beans. So that was a little place where we could start, rice and beans. Believe it or not, that is our favorite meal. That is our meal for guests, rice and beans with all the crazy, wonderful fixings.
Yummy.
So I feel that we were
Especially
actually lucky starting back then.
So
Because
delicious.
anybody today who is starting to eat plant-based is so tempted by the vegan junk food world out there, if somebody strictly eats that vegan junk food world food, they could be in bad a shape as if they were still eating the American standard diet.
I mean, we're very thankful for it because of all the animals and ethics that are involved in not eating meat, but from our angle of nutrition and health, yeah.
It is kind of a delicate balance. I mean, obviously there's far more good that comes with eating the meat alternatives than the actual meat itself. But as you pointed out,
ingredients in something like Beyond Meat. It's coconut oil. It's 3 kinds of oil. It is processed food.
And again, it's great.
And it's good for the animals,
Great
good for the planet, but it's not good for your body. You need to eat clean. You need to eat whole food, plant-based.
Yeah, it is kind of a fine line for a lot of people. I think that what I discovered when I was first making that transition over to eating a plant-based diet, just as you said many years ago, didn't really know what you were doing, but you figured it out. Those types of foods were available to me, so I used them for a time and then transitioned over into the whole food plant-based realm, where things actually I found are far more flavorful anyway, and certainly healthier, as you said. So
Don't you find, Chuck, that your taste changed enormously? Just totally. To us now, salty food is awful.
they've changed dramatically.
Things can be way too sweet. It's hard to lose the interest in sweet, but very sweet is no longer, is just a no-no.
Yeah.
And oil, forget it.
So when you were putting the recipes together for this book, knowing just how much salt and fat and sugar are in the standard American diet, how cognizant were you of the palates of the vast majority of people as they're trying to convert over to this? How do you replicate kind of those flavors and just kind of letting people know, like, hey, your food is still going to taste great even if it's whole food plant-based recipe?
Well, this is my 5th cookbook project and my mom's 3rd. So together we have 8+ cookbooks, and we're not trying to fool anybody. Like, we're not trying to make that bliss point just like crazy addictive level of flavor and texture and mouthfeel. Doug Lyle once said when he had a bite of our cake, he's like, "This is a really reasonable cake," and I was like, "That's a really weird way to modify a way of cake." And he's like, "No, it's good. I want to finish my piece, but I'm not going to want want more, which is really reasonable when you're going to have cake. It's scary to have cake that tastes so good, you're like, and you eat the whole thing. So, Chuck, can I go back to why this is a plant-based women's warrior book?
Of course, I would love to.
There's 3 points about it that I want to bring up, and I know you asked my mom about why. And so again, this is a tip of the hat to her, and who she is, what she is, how she is, what she's made of, just her tenacity and her just amazing can-do-itness. Can-do-itness?
That's a word. If it's not, it is now.
And then also, I wanted to call out that globally, not necessarily in America, not necessarily in every household, but globally, women are primarily the ones in charge of growing or gathering or shopping or thinking about, doing the mental labor, and then also the preparation to the physical labor of creating food, serving food, and giving food to themselves, their family, their community. And so I really am calling out to all women, the majority of us who are out there, and then this is for anybody, however you identify, non-binary, bring it on, anybody, please be fierce and be bold, and you can be delicious eating the plant-based diet for all the reasons we've kind of touched on already, Chuck. You know, the environment, animals, our health, our pocketbook, any way you want to look at it, it makes sense. And also, I know you haven't really asked about this yet, but this is the exam room, so I'm going to go right into something sort of below the belt-ish. But for women, and I can
Jane is very good below the belt.
well, because I'm a middle school sex ed teacher sometimes.
Okay.
Part-time, when I'm not doing cookbooks and I did a little research with the Cleveland Clinic and, presentations and all this stuff, I teach middle school sex ed. I mean, I have for years. But anyway, in talking to kids about stuff down there, I realized, oh my gosh, adults need to know more about what's going on down there. And I realized there's not a lot of research or information specifically for women even about what's going on down there. So women, obviously, I want to start above the belt. And Dr. Christy Funk is amazing in how she talks about Breast, the Owner's Manual. Her book, I don't know if you've had her on the exam room, but she is...
Many times.
What's that?
Many times.
There you go. There you go. You know what I'm talking about. She's just amazing about it. And her, like, I have a conference every March about health for women, or just women go for it. It's around the International Day of the Woman. And she was my presenter, and it was one of my favorite presentations because she's just so like, yeah, you've got breasts, you've got to take care of them. Plants are the best way. Eat this, don't eat that. So clear. And so for more about that, obviously watch your podcast with Christy Funk or her book, Breast, the Owner's Manual. But then below the belt is so interesting because women and men are very similar. We're all made of the same Legos, if you will. Like men have nipples, women have nipples. We do. Why? Who knows? We have the same gear because, somewhere inside our bodies we branch off and then this tissue becomes this or that. So below the belt, we kind of have similar tissue too in many ways. And so instead of going from, I'm going to go from front to back. So in the front, women have 8,000 nerves for sexual pleasure, clitoris, clit, whatever you want to call it. They have the hole then behind that called the urethra, and the hole behind that called the vagina, and the hole behind that called the anus. So in my middle school sex ed classroom, I have this term I use called CUVA, C-U-V-A. And CUVA represents just the order of events.
What a topic for today.
I couldn't find it.
Well, I work out.
Okay, anyway, I'm gonna, Chuck, I'm gonna have to just get at the end of the podcast. But anyway, the t-shirt says CUVA, C-U-V-A. I think it's like Cleveland United Vegetarian Association or something. Anyway, so the way that a plant-based diet can benefit women below the belt needs to be talked about because women suffer silently through so much. And I had there's a doctor one time in the audience when I was presenting, she said, we don't need to put up with this. And I was like, she doesn't like my presentation, she doesn't want to hear anymore. And she's just like, we need to arm together and just take this on. We do not need to suffer all these things that are going on down below the belt. And I was like, oh, cute, she's on board. Because what's happening, let's start with the A of CUVA. A, the anus. If on a standard American diet, I know you probably talked about this with many people, Obviously, constipation is not an issue, and all this high fiber diet, these are just like, you know, as regular can be. It's a moving experience being on a plant-based diet. So things that's not an issue, and so many Americans, I mean, bazillion of us deal with constipation, and then others of us don't, and we just, it's, you know, numerous times a day we go to the bathroom, number two. So if that's not an issue, then you're not gonna have diverticulitis. Diverticulitis is the outcouching from pushing too hard and trying to go, number two. People think it's from seeds and corn. It's because you didn't eat enough seeds and corn to have all that high fiber flow. And thus, you're not gonna have hemorrhoids, which are kind of like a bundle of grapes of veins that have been pressed out from pressure out of the anus itself.
I'm
So,
pooped already.
right, taking care of the A. The V, the vagina, the vaginal space is, I mean, the vagina is, it's a space, it's a tube, it's a lobby. The middle school kids love, boys especially, like, hey, I'll be at bellhop, I'll meet you in the lobby.
Oh my gosh.
That's hilarious, it's hilarious. So the vaginal space benefits tremendously, because it gets so much blood flow as our brain, as our head and our privates get tons of blood flow, as you know. And that blood flow is there for many good reasons, and I'm gonna get to that in a second, but above it is the cervix and the endometrial lining, which is the lining inside the uterus and ovaries, all benefit from a whole food plant-based diet. And again, we have so many resources to look at through here. And Neil's book, what's Neil's hormone book?
Your Body in Balance?
Your Body in Balance, yes. I refer to him, I should say, if you want more, please see this book, because he has many examples of patients who talks about who had issues with fibroids, and we have a friend also who, she just had gotten married
30 seconds.
Early 20s, and she was so anemic from her fibroids, she was gonna have to have a hysterectomy, and she just got married. But oddly, luckily, her father had a heart attack, went on the Plant Perfect diet found in my dad's book, and she was eating with them, and she was getting ready to be married, or however the timing worked, but suddenly, she didn't have to get a hysterectomy because she got pregnant. So I wanted them to name their child Fib, short for fibroid, and for the fib that you need to have a hysterectomy to stop being anemic. When you just actually stop eating cheese, your endometrial lining stops making these stalactites of tissue that just drip blood. So that was wonderful. And also women have some great changes that happen throughout their life, coming into being a fertile person and going out and being a fertile person. And hormones drive that. And going through puberty, you know, a plant-based diet can help anyone. And for kids, you know, they kind of have to have maybe more calories than us, like avocado-based stuff, the nuts, but not the dairy. Take kids off the dairy and meat. It will help their hormone swings, their skin issues. I can't imagine that evolution really had acne and you know, as part of plants. But anyway, and the same on the other side. Menopause, we have a friend who went through such extreme hot flashes that they hurt. She was in pain, and she couldn't sleep. She was in such pain, it was horrible. Again, her husband had a bad heart test. They went on a plant-based diet, and she said, I didn't have hot flashes that night. I thought it was a fluke. Then the next night, I didn't have hot flashes. And then realized, oh my gosh, this is from being on a plant-based diet. I want to sing from the mountains. I want to be louder about this than I am about climate change, than I am about literature. She's like, this is the issue that everyone can know about. Anyway, so
True.
It's amazing how it can help in all of these things. We don't just have friend testimonies. We have testimonies from many, many people. But the urethra, you know, going ahead of the A and the B. No, A, U. Sorry. We're going backwards. We did the anus, we did the vagina, now we're in the urethra. The urethra benefits everything above, your kidneys, your uterus, everything, your bladder. And Dr. Michael McGregor has a great research about how our bladders benefit from a plant-based diet, but also that people who consume chicken tend to have some sort of antibiotic-resistant bacteria that gets in there, and then it just sort of sets up camp, and all these UTIs, urinary tract infections, can become issues. Even after you've cleaned up, and even after you've eaten it, it stays around your whole environment, which is so gross to think about. And I can't help but think about, if you're muckling, you know, switchy with somebody who eats chicken and has that reservoir bacteria, you might get it from him, her, they, them. You know, you don't know. and can't get rid of it. Anyway, so stay off of that. Then the C, the clitoris, the clitoris, the clit, out there in front, it's the exact same tissue as the head of the penis. Like the head of the penis is a different tissue than the rest of the shaft. It's the glands, G-L-A-N-S. And the clitoris is the same tissue, so there's a little bit of engorgement that happens when it comes around. And that comes from the endothelial cells that are in there and respond by dilating with, like my dad's research is all about endothelial cells and how they dilate when they're healthy enough and haven't been covered in grease and meat and cheese. But what is the most fascinating, Chuck, you still with me?
I'm right here. I'm just enthralled. I'm letting you go. So keep on. You're on roll.
Okay, so the tissue in the shaft of the penis, remember how I said that women and men have the same Lego pieces?
Of course.
Women have that tissue. So the glands of the penis, the head of the penis, and then the shaft is in the man. The head of the clitoris is the same tissue as the glands.
He must be blushing.
The corpus cavernosa in a woman is right along the, I wish I had my t-shirt, my CUVA, but it's in the pelvic floor. And so these two sections that are usually the man's penis, or not usually, that can be found there, are found in the pelvic floor of the woman. And when she's aroused, they are sort of like these great arms or wings that go up from the clitoris. They're called the crura. And they go up around the vaginal space, and they hug the vaginal space like a hippie hugging a tree. And that blood flow during engorgement lets the plasma sort of come into the vaginal space and then mix with lady chemicals. That's lubrication. So a woman's sign of readiness is lubrication. A man's sign for readiness is an erection. Both of those are what you need to have those happen. Or blood flow. And good blood flow means you don't have little tiny capillaries that are clogged up with grease, meat, and cheese. They're wide open with healthy things like plants and all that good stuff. So the side view of a female, front to back, C-U-V-A. Cuba is a really important thing to know about as far as how women can benefit from eating plants. Head to toe, left to right, front to back.
In case Jane went too fast, there's a lovely section in the book. Oh, there's not? Oh,
No. So we have breasts, and we have the front view of the female anatomy, which I think is the wrong view to give anyone who's trying to be educated about how women work. We need to do a side view, front to back, because penis does 3 things for a man. What does it do?
Jane, don't ask me that.
Oh,
You are the expert.
you know what penis does.
You've taught me everything about all of this. Stop.
It does, you know,
Yes.
urination.
I'm not going to speak about it.
Why not? I don't know.
Oh,
Urination, reproduction, sexual pleasure. Penis does it. Everyone knows it from the beginning.
I knew that.
This is the greatest interview in the history.
So females' bodies, no one talks about how they live in different sections. It's like we're jackknife versus a cleaver. I mean, I ask the boys in my middle school classes sometimes. I get very, very sorry.
That little.
Sorry. I ask the boys, like, hey, where do you guys pee from? They're like, penis! Like, where will you one day reproduce from? Penis! Where does sexual pleasure come from? Penis! If I asked them where do you poop from, they would say, penis! Because they love this unit, they love what it can do. Whereas females are not like that. We're just, the same thing, same answer. They're just divided and sexualized. Urination, urethra. Reproduction, and their menses, vaginal space, sexual pleasure. Clitoris up here in front. You were designed to have pleasure. Women actually have a few more nerves than men. And then anus for everyone has one. I'm getting carried away, but
Jane has this Kuva t-shirt, which I was unable to find.
I'm running
But
to get
it's
it.
kind of fun.
By all means.
And what, you're gonna go right now?
Well, no, if the next question's for you, I'm going to
Well, I wanted to go back to something because Jane jumped in before I could say this.
Okay.
And you had asked about when we were cooking, if we were thinking of the salt and sugar, et cetera, and how people would like to eat. And I have learned because of working with my husband's patients that, and you see, he gets a sort of a subgroup that really really has to eat plant perfect. They they can't stray away because they call and they say they're slated to have triple bypass, but they don't want to have it. They aren't, have stable angina, so they can do plant-based, but they have to stick on the track. So I think of the patients when I am working on recipes like that. That's where my thought is. Okay.
And our book, actually, our editor who has published
my husband's book.
Can you tell I'm tired?
his first book, she did all the recipes in, so it's in their book. The next book they did was our Rent versus Heart Disease cookbook, which was like a companion to that one, with the same guidelines of no meat, no dairy, no egg, no oil, no nuts, and no avocado. And so this book that we're doing with Penguin again, they said, hey, people are really used to you guys being this heart disease friendly group, and not all our recipes in here qualify, because we do have some nuts we use here and there, and we do have avocado as an option in some things. So we have indicated at the top of each recipe if it's heart disease friendly, or how to make it heart disease friendly, or if it's not.
And patients just need to be smart and know what's right for them in their situation. So here is the thing.
There it is.
Hoorah! Chuck, they will come in women and men's sizes. If you need a Kuba t-shirt, they're available on my website. Maybe we should just send them.
I mean, I would be honored to wear one and proudly put that up on Instagram and link off to it in the show description, in the episode notes. I think all of the exam roomies would flip for a Kuba t-shirt.
Chuck,
There you
can
go.
you say what Kuba is?
I mean, I could, but I would blush. I'd turn pinker than
Yeah,
they
okay, I don't know if you're a parent, or if any females or women or nieces in your life or daughters, but you've got to be able to talk about this. They need it. If from the start, we knew, I have 3 brothers. Come on, man. If from the start, we all knew that we were equals, it would be such a better playing field in so many ways.
So, right, I mean, I do. I'm very happily married. I have a wonderful wife. The thing is, you need to understand that myself and virtually every other male on the face of the earth, still, I don't care how old or how young we are, when we talk about these things, we revert back to, I don't know, the boys in your middle school sex ed class. We are about on that.
You guys are all, my 7th graders, 8th graders, 6th graders, they're all so comfortable saying this stuff. So get your 7th grade self on, just channel your 7th grade Chucky, whatever you were called,
Yeah.
and you can say these words.
No, you don't have to.
Oh, you can.
It's all right. It's all right. So, all right. C is that the? Are we talking about the big C word there? Is that what we're going with here?
Clitoris?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So clitoris, urethra, vagina, and anus. Is that cool?
Woo! You deserve a t-shirt. We're gonna have to get your size at the end and send you one.
Outstanding. All right. I'm gonna rep that one with pride, and I'm gonna put in all caps when I post that on Instagram what each one of those stands for. You know. So we're gonna say it loud and we're gonna say it proud.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
And,
Hoopah.
and how plant-based diet helps everything, front to back.
Right on. Front to back.
You thought this was gonna be an interview about recipes.
No, a woman warrior is a woman warrior about lots of stuff. Like I'm taking care of my business.
Oh, yeah, y'all are trailblazing today. There's no doubt about that. We're going to talk food. We're talking a whole bunch of... You know what I'm wondering? I'm wondering, like, well, 2 things. One, is it possible to invent a time machine so I can become middle school Chuck again and take your sex ed class? Because what you're saying beats the heck out of these boring overhead projector slides that they used to put up for me and my classmates. But 2, I'm wondering who gave you the talk about all of this. I mean, whoever did... I mean, they instilled a passion in you, the likes of which I have never seen.
Well, no,
That's
no one.
Jane.
No,
That's
this,
Jane. That's why this book works.
this book is actually a cookbook. But I take any chance I can to talk about Cuba. I've actually asked Neil if I can come and talk at the PCRM conference. One time it was about sexual health stuff. And I'm an RN and I don't have research about this specifically, but I do have plenty of time in the classroom, 30 years. Like, which is like serious, helmet time of being in there fighting, getting this stuff done. But cookbook seems to be where I land.
I mean, well, here's the deal. I mean, I will offer you all the time that you want on the show. We can even do a special live episode and just call it like Cuba time, right? And we will get thousands and thousands of people.
No one will know what we're talking about though.
Not, I mean, they absolutely will. I mean, that's the whole point. Nobody knows what it is we're talking about until we take the time to explain it. And there, if you break down what Cuba is and like why it's okay, I'm just saying.
Right, well, bring it on, absolutely, let's do it. And speaking of women,
Yes.
we knew that we were on the right track for this book, because at one point during COVID, when we were trying to, shop and cook and think that the world was gonna be okay, we said, okay, let's count up what we have, let's count what we have.
done yet?
We had about, 7 or 8 breakfasts, we had 9 or 10 lunches, a good 9 or 10 dinners, but how many desserts we had? 44.
Ooh, wow.
But-
How about that?
But we knew we had a great book for women, we were like, right on target.
We were really lucky because we got the okay for this book just as COVID began. So we had that whole COVID time to really work on it. And I can remember my husband and I would stay very isolated. And at night we would often watch TV. And I would hear the door rustle and I would begin to salivate because I knew that Jane had another brownie recipe that she wanted us to try. It took 12 tries on one of her recipes.
The out of sight one, I hear.
She hit the right brownie. And so it was so much fun, and we lived next door to each other with this lovely
Nice.
So it
That's
was
cool.
fun, just, going back and forth with, what do you think of this? And
Oh, would you let me take that full? Yes. Now that is a brownie, my friends.
Yeah, that was a problem, we got, there's so many.
I would love to know what your process is for creating a recipe start to finish. So you say that you want to make a brownie, you want a new brownie recipe, where do you start?
Well, there's not one process. I mean, my mom really comes from, for so many decades, she's been coming from heart disease patients. And, she's been dealing with that since I was in college and, I was running around, kind of got married, had kids. I have not been thinking about heart disease patients the whole time. We do eat sort of similar guidelines, with the exception of eating nuts and avocado here and there. And so the process, she just is constantly creating stuff, thinking about them. I have little kids, I want to make like teriyaki tofu, and so it kind of comes from our own lenses, but also what's really great is that when people are really kind and decide to like have us over or have us try things, make a meal or whatever, that is so inspiring. And we've had veggie burgers at friends' house. We're like, what is this recipe? And they use things we never would have used. And so we have a bunch of people who are contributors or who have their recipe came to us for
has inspired us in certain ways.
Yes, and then we tweak it so that it fits our guidelines. Sometimes I get inspired by things I see here and there on social media, but I try not to really do that a lot because I don't like social media, and it's stuff, and I just, we can plant strong things, plant-basify. I mean, there's so many things to do to make it not have the oil, not have any salt at all, or minimal salt. Change out the sweet and the agave for maple syrup. We're always tweaking things like that.
Yeah, I love the creativity that comes with this. You have a great quote from Sophie. Who is Sophie to you? Niece, granddaughter?
Granddaughter, our son Rick's daughter.
Okay, so
There's 20 of us.
Sophie's quote I thought was brilliant for people who aren't yet eating this way. And for 11 years old, I was like, wow, Sophie just gets it, right? So that I've been lucky because it's easy for me since I've been eating plant strong my whole life. Being plant-based does not mean just eating salads all of the time. it means so many fun and unique things like a kale cake with raspberry frosting. Not just vanilla frosting with pink dye in it, but lemons and raspberries, and it's just really fun and tasty. And if that doesn't sum up what it means to eat a whole food plant-based diet, I don't know what does, to be honest with you. I mean, that is a 10-star quote right there.
Yeah, it's a great quote, and Sophie has carried on and continues to invent wonderful things. She must have been just about to be 12 when she wrote that, and she's now just 13. And she's great. And in fact, I mean, the amazing thing to me is that we have 4 children, and all of them are plant-based, all of their spouses are plant-based, and all 10 of our grandchildren
awesome.
are plant-based. And
Wow.
I had one of my favorite parts of what I did in this book was to interview
Cool down.
everybody, to see it,
Kick my butt.
And
what they
that's
thought
where-
about
that's
being
where Sophie's-
plant-based, and that's where Sophie's comment came. And Georgie, who was 8, said, without being plant-based, I can't imagine how I'd live. I'd open the refrigerator and see things like chicken wrapped in plastic and just feel like, what happened? But then Zeb, Jane's son, who was 6'7", and at age 20,
Poor guy
said-
never had any milk.
he said, every bite, not killing anything, great for the planet, not burdened by being sick. You feel good, it's the future.
And they're all my kids are
And
collegiate
then-
swimmers, by the way.
And then,
I bet.
Pope, who was 7, if you eat meat, you die.
Woo, powerful stuff.
Then all of them, they all had such wonderful comments. I love them.
You know, you guys are like the first family of plant-based eating or plant-strong lifestyle even, and I think though that people will be shocked, and you write about this in the book, is that the night before your wedding, you had a goat roast, and you talk about even putting the head of the goat on a stick during this roast, and
It's just my water
I
bottle.
think that, I don't say that to like,
In 50 days, sorry.
Well, yes, I mean, I grew up with a fabulous maverick of a father and mother, and we used to go, you know, when it rained, my father would get the snails off the driveway and call them escargot. We did underwater diving. We ate turtles.
If the roadkill still was
goat roast. I mean,
if the roadkill was warm, they would take it home.
but the most shocking thing to me, and I can't even believe it, after we were married, the first meal that I served to my husband's parents and to our wonderful and very distinguished landlords was beef tongue.
Oh man.
It's beyond my comprehension today. So
you know,
people can come a long way, you know that.
absolutely.
A long way, and
Absolutely.
all of that is as if it were another time,
Another planet.
another planet, another person.
No doubt about it. You always have the power of change within you. I think that that's kind of been a universal theme for the exam room, and a lot of people eating a plant-based diet is like, I never thought I could do this. I never thought I could do this. And lo and behold, you're not just doing it, they're knocking, you know, home runs out of the park all the time with their health. It's just, it's so extraordinary. And the solution, just, it's so simple a lot of the times. I have a couple of more. You guys have been fantastic with your time here. I know that you're busy with the release of the book. But a couple of more. One of the things that I've also
Good
learned,
job.
especially since Dr. Barnard released Your Body in Balance and having the opportunity to speak with women who are featured in
High
his
five.
book, is
Till
that
next
it's
time.
not just the